All right, so in this video, I'm going to talk about top 5 best features in Google Sheets for advanced users. Now I realize this is subjective, so your top 5 may not be the same as my top 5. Let me know in comments what are your top 5 features if you disagree. Now, if somebody asks me what's the best thing about Google Sheets compared to any other spreadsheet application that exists currently, that would be, without even thinking about it, arrays. Now, there are obviously arrays in Excel and in other spreadsheet applications. It's just the way Google Sheets handles arrays is amazing. So a quick example of that would be, let me just copy paste some data here. So if I have all of this stuff thrown around like this, using array in Google Sheets, we can actually build our combined data on the fly. So I can just start my array bracket like this, and then I'm gonna take these two headers, I'm gonna do a comma, and then I'm gonna click on this header to add it as another column next to this. And then I'm gonna do semicolon to go to my rows, and then I'm gonna grab this first column of dates, comma, and then I'm gonna add to that these pieces right in here. Close my brackets, hit enter, and if you look here, I can basically just piece it all together within my array structure. Now, any one of these pieces could be, instead of just a range, could be a function that returns a range or whatever else you do. But that's how flexible Google Sheets is with arrays. So you can basically just piece things together just like this. So in this case, commas would separate my columns and semicolons would be my row separators. Now, if you have a different setting in your spreadsheet, your separators could be a little different. So maybe in your case, instead of commas, you might have to use this to get the same result. There you go. That's our Google Sheets arrays. Now, the second feature in Google Sheets is the fact that it actually understands the difference between an empty cell and a zero. So if I simply just create a formula and do equals and click on an empty cell and hit enter, what I'm going to get is an empty cell. I'm not going to get a zero, which may not seem like a big deal to a lot of people. But for me as a data person, this is a big deal compared to, for example, how Excel will return a zero if I do something like this. Let's get rid of this. So the next one in my list, number 3, is going to be filter function. So filter function is pretty straightforward generally. So what it does, it takes a range. So we can just, for example, grab this range of data, comma, and then it takes one or more conditions to filter rows out of this data. So for example, I could select this column of sales reps and check if that equals to Jennifer. Close parentheses and hit enter. And again, you can see how filter function handles our blanks as blanks. Doesn't return zeros. So by itself, this function seems pretty straightforward. There is no particular magic, but it seems to me like every time I'm working on a project, this function always comes up somehow. So if you need to learn more about this, I have a video covering filter function by itself. Feel free to watch it. That would be our number 3. So number 4 feature in Google Sheets for me is the ability to do open references. So what I mean by that, if I was trying to, for example, sum a column of values, in this case, let's actually zoom in a little more. I can do equal sum, open parentheses, and select this range of numbers, close parentheses, hit enter. That should give me my total. The thing that Google Sheets allows us to do is to take this and drop this end reference 20 And then it basically says start from this cell, H8, and then go all the way down. Which means now if I add more numbers down here, it will become a part of this total. So again, that's open references. And open references can be done not only for rows, you can also do them for columns. So to give you a very quick example of this, let's say I have some numbers here and I'm planning to add more numbers going to the right. And I want to start getting my sum from here and go right. So I can do equals sum, open parentheses. And then again, I'm just going to select this range, close parentheses. And now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drop this E. And that basically means start from this B1 cell and then go all the way right in this first row. And again, it just works fine. We can go here and add more numbers, and you're going to see how that becomes a part of this total. So that's open references in Google Sheets. And finally, number 5 is going to be scripting implementation. So for scripts in Google Sheets, we have JavaScript as a language. Now, the reason that's great, it's not because JavaScript is the greatest language in the world. It's just because JavaScript is so popular. There is a lot of code that was already written. So there are a lot of JavaScript libraries you could use in here if you wanted to, without having to spend the time to develop the whole thing from scratch yourself. What's also great is the way that implementation of classes, objects, and methods is done. And what I mean by that is that when we go to our editor, the way that all of these methods are created and the way they're named is so great that you can get away without going to documentation every 5 seconds to do what you need. So there's a pretty consistent logic behind this when you do like all these get methods, then also you have all the set methods. So generally speaking, if you're trying to get something within your instance or object, whatever it is, most of the time you can just type get and look at some of these get methods, and just by looking at the name of these methods, it makes sense, right? So we have our get range, and then inside of our get range, you can do your get and see, you can get the background, you can get the A1 notation, you can get the column, all of these things. When you look at them, most of them will make sense without having to go and try to read the docs to figure out what's going on. And the same way, if I do set, then we have all the set methods. So just that saves so much time compared to a lot of other places where if you have to write a script, you find yourself constantly going to the docs and trying to figure out how it's supposed to work and what the method is called and all of that. And finally, what's possibly my favorite part about this is that we have a nice way to call external APIs by using URL fetch app. So this allows us to post data to external places and also get data from external places by having a pretty easy to use API. Now again, for this function, I have videos covering it. If you want to learn more about it, you can check out my videos, for example, for import JSON function. That would be a good place to get started with something like this to understand how this works. But again, JavaScript, a lot more pleasant to work with compared to something like Visual Basic. And that's my top 5. Thanks for watching, and let me know what I should have included here that I didn't.